What if Ichigo's Hollow took over? Not for one fight, not for a few seconds, not as a mask Ichigo could rip off before things went too far. What if the moment that was supposed to save Rukia became the moment Ichigo Kurosaki disappeared? Because in this timeline, the Hollow does not just borrow his body, it keeps it. Before anyone can decide what Ichigo has become, the Hollow makes the decision for them. It nearly executes Byakuya. It almost cuts through Rukia to do it. And then it vanishes into the world of the living wearing Ichigo's face. The terrifying part is not that Ichigo becomes stronger. It is that every victory makes it harder to tell if Ichigo is winning or if the Hollow is. Before Aizen becomes a god, before Okyora breaks Ichigo on the roof of Las Noches, before Soul Society is forced to point its blades at the boy who saved them, one question starts hunting everyone.
If Ichigo Kurosaki becomes the monster, who is brave enough to stop him? That question is going to follow three people. Rukia, who still believes Ichigo can come back. Uryu, who starts preparing for the day he might have to kill him. And Aizen, who realizes the monster is not the end of Ichigo's story. It is the door. And the entire timeline will come down to three choices. Orihime's hands,
Uryu's arrow, Rukia's sword. One of them could save Ichigo. One of them could kill him. And one of them will decide whether the world still gets to call him human. This is the timeline where Ichigo Kurosaki does not become the hero of Soul Society. He becomes its nightmare. And by the end, the scariest part will not be the mask. It will be the moment everyone realizes the monster was never separate from the hero.
The change begins on Sokyoku Hill. Byakuya Kuchiki stands in front of him, calm as death itself, with Senbon Zagura scattered across the sky like a million blades of judgment. Rukia is safe, but not free. Renji is broken. The captains are moving, the lieutenants are watching, and Ichigo, already exhausted from fighting his way through Soul Society, is trying to stand on pride alone. Then, Byakuya releases Bankai. The sky turns pink. The ground disappears beneath a storm of blades, and Ichigo realizes something horrifying. His Bankai is fast, but it is not enough. Every time he moves, his bones scream. Every time he blocks, his hands split open. Every time he swings Zangetsu, Byakuya is already gone. In the original timeline, this is where Ichigo's hollow mask appears for just a moment. This time, Ichigo is a little more tired. This time, his fear is a little deeper. This time, when the white mask crawls across his face, Ichigo reaches up to tear it off, and his hand stops. Not because he changes his mind, because something else grabs his wrist from the inside. Ichigo freezes. Then he laughs. But it is not his laugh. Byakuya sees it instantly. The posture changes first. The shoulders loosen. The sword drops slightly, like the body has suddenly remembered it is not a swordsman. It is a predator. The white mask seals across Ichigo's face completely. Black Reiatsu explodes from him, but it is no longer wild like a storm. It moves like breath, like hunger. Rukia whispers his name, and the hollow turns its head toward her. For 1 second, she thinks he recognizes her. Then it smiles. Byakuya attacks immediately. Senbon Zakura falls like a blizzard, but the hollow Ichigo vanishes through it. Not around it, through it. Blades carve into his arms, his chest, his neck, and he does not slow down. He lets the petals cut him open because he has already found the space between them. Byakuya's eyes widen. Ichigo appears above him, upside down in the air, holding Zangetsu with one hand. Then he fires a Getsuga Tensho, point blank. Not a clean slash, a black scream. The impact drags Byakuya across Sokyoku Hill and tears a trench through the stone. For the first time, the noble captain of the 6th Division lands on his knees, and the Hollow is on him before he can breathe. Byakuya uses Senkei, surrounding them with countless swords, turning the battlefield into a cage of death. It should be the perfect counter. No room to run, no room to dodge, no room to use speed. But the Hollow does not fight like Ichigo. It kicks one sword into another. It drags its blade along the ground to throw sparks in Byakuya's eyes. It bites into one of Senbon Sakura's petals and spits blood through the mask as if pain is funny. Then it starts copying him. Every step Byakuya takes, the Hollow mirrors. Every opening Byakuya tries to create, the Hollow closes first. Byakuya realizes the truth with a cold pulse of fear.
Ichigo's body has speed. Ichigo's sword has power. But this thing has instinct, and instinct does not hesitate. The final clash happens so fast, even Rukia barely sees it. Byakuya raises his sword. Ichigo's Hollow raises Zangetsu. Both vanish. Then the hill splits. When the dust clears, Byakuya is standing behind the Hollow, blood running down his arm. The Hollow is standing behind Byakuya, its mask cracked across one eye.
For a second, everyone thinks Byakuya won. Then his sword falls from his hand. The Hollow turns around slowly. It lifts Zangetsu. And this is where the timeline breaks. Because Ichigo would have stopped. Ichigo would have heard Rukia scream. Ichigo would have remembered why he came. The Hollow does not. It swings. Rukia throws herself between them. The blade stops a hair from her face. Not because the Hollow chooses mercy. Because somewhere deep inside, Ichigo Kurosaki, buried beneath the mask, grabs the blade with his bare soul. For the first time, the Hollow twitches. It tilts its head, confused by resistance inside its own body. And that half second saves Byakuya's life. Yoruichi arrives like lightning. Urahara opens a hidden gate beneath the hill. Rukia grabs Ichigo's sleeve. And the Hollow, still smiling, lets them pull it into the dark. By the time the captains reach Sokyoku Hill, Ichigo Kurosaki is gone. Byakuya Kuchiki is alive. Barely. Rukia is missing. And Aizen Sosuke, watching from the shadows, smiles like a man who just saw the future. Because in this timeline, Aizen does not just steal the Hogyoku from Rukia. He witnesses the first real proof that his dream is possible. A Soul Reaper, a Hollow, a human, one body, one battlefield, and no master. At least, not yet. And that tiny phrase, "not yet," becomes the spine of this entire timeline. Because Aizen is not scared of a wild Hollow. He can use a wild Hollow. What fascinates him is the possibility that Ichigo might learn to choose when the monster comes out. So before Ichigo can even stand again, 3 groups make 3 different decisions. Rukia decides he can be saved. Soul Society decides he should be erased. And Aizen decides Ichigo belongs to him. The next time Ichigo wakes up, he is chained under Urahara's shop. Not with metal, with Kido seals written into the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and even the air. Every breath burns. His hands are bound, his sword is gone, his mask is cracked, but still fused to half his face like bone that grew wrong. Rukia is standing on the other side of the barrier. Her eyes are red.
Ichigo tries to speak. What comes out is laughter.
Rukia flinches. That hurts him more than the chains. Inside his own mind, Ichigo is drowning. The world is sideways. Buildings hang from the sky. Rain falls upward. The streets of his inner world are flooded black, and in the distance, standing on the side of a tower, is the white version of himself. White hair, yellow eyes, same face, same sword. And the kind of grin that says he already won! Ichigo screams at him to give his body back. White Ichigo laughs. Your body? You dropped it! Then he points down. Ichigo looks into the black water and sees flashes of what happened on Sokyoku Hill. Byakuya bleeding. Rukia stepping in front of the blade. His own hand refusing to stop. Ichigo tries to punch him. White Ichigo breaks his arm. This is the new rule of the story. Ichigo is not stronger because his Hollow took over. He is weaker because now every fight has two enemies, the one in front of him and the one wearing his face. For 3 days, Urahara tries to separate them. Every attempt fails. Yoruichi suggests killing the body before the Hollow matures. Rukia refuses. Chad says nothing, but he stands in front of the door.
Orihime arrives with Uryu and sees Ichigo behind the barrier. For 1 second, he looks up at her with his normal brown eye. Then, the yellow one opens beside it. Orihime covers her mouth. Uryu reaches for his bow. And Ichigo, from inside the cage of his own soul, realizes something worse than fear. His friends are not sure if they are saving him anymore. They are deciding whether he should be allowed to live. Then Soul Society sends its answer, and from this moment on, every scene has a second timer running underneath it. How long until someone stops trying to save Ichigo and starts trying to put him down? And the answer cannot be some nameless executioner from Soul Society. For this to truly hurt, it has to be someone who loves him. Not a request, not a warning, a sentence. Ichigo Kurosaki is to be classified as a hollow threat.
Rukia Kuchiki is to be recovered. Kisuke Urahara is to surrender the target. If he refuses, the captains are authorized to erase the entire shop from the human world. And the first captain through the gate is Kenpachi Zaraki. That is when the basement becomes a battlefield. Kenpachi does not care about classifications. He does not care about law. He does not even care that Ichigo might still be inside. He only cares that the Ryatsu beneath Urahara's shop feels monstrous. He grins, pulls off his eye patch, and says one thing. Let him out. Urahara refuses. Kenpachi cuts the barrier open anyway. The Hollow bursts out like a bullet. Ichigo's body is still injured from Byakuya. The mask is incomplete. His Bankai pressure is unstable. He should not be able to last 10 seconds against Kenpachi. And he does not.
That is what makes this fight terrifying! The Hollow is faster. It is nastier. It goes for Kenpachi's throat, his tendons, his eyes. But Kenpachi loves pain.
every slash only teaches him the rhythm. He takes one Getsuga to the chest, walks through the smoke, grabs Ichigo by the face, and slams him through 3 floors of Urahara's shop. For the first time, White Ichigo panics. Because Kenpachi is not afraid of the monster.
He is disappointed by it. You took over his body for this? Kenpachi drives his blade through Ichigo's shoulder and pins him to the street outside. The Hollow howls. People in Karakura wake up screaming without knowing why. Inside the inner world, Ichigo sees the Hollow stagger. And he realizes something. The Hollow can bleed! The Hollow can lose! The Hollow is not a god. It is just another part of him pretending it cannot be hurt. Ichigo lunges. For 1 second, he grabs control. His real voice comes out. Stop! Kenpachi hears it. Rukia hears it. Even Byakuya, watching from a rooftop with his arm bandaged and his pride in pieces, hears it. But White Ichigo rips control back before anyone can move. He tears himself off Kenpachi's blade, fires a wild Getsuga into the ground, and vanishes into the smoke. When the smoke clears, the street is destroyed. Ichigo is gone, and Soul Society has its proof. This thing cannot be contained. It has to be hunted, and that is what keeps the next stretch dangerous. Ichigo is no longer just the main character moving toward the next fight. He is the thing everyone else is trying to predict. When he appears, the question is not only whether he wins, it is who he hurts before the fight is over. For the next month, Karakura becomes a war zone in secret. Soul Reapers patrol rooftops, Quincy arrows flash between buildings. Hollows are drawn to the city by the pressure leaking through it. And somewhere in the maze of alleyways and abandoned construction sites, Ichigo's Hollow keeps appearing and disappearing. Sometimes it kills Hollows before they touch a human. Sometimes it attacks Soul Reapers who come too close. Sometimes it stands on rooftops across from Orihima's apartment and does nothing at all. That is the detail that scares Urahara the most, because a mindless Hollow would hunt. This thing is learning. Then comes the night that almost ends the debate. A Hollow appears near a hospital, drawn to the spiritual pressure leaking from Ichigo's broken soul. Rukia reaches it first. So does the Hollow wearing Ichigo's body. For 10 seconds, it looks like a rescue. Ichigo tears the Hollow apart before it can touch a single human soul. Then one of the nurses screams. The sound is small, human, terrified, and Ichigo's Hollow turns toward it. Rukia moves before she thinks. She drives Sode no Shirayuki into the ground and freezes both of Ichigo's legs to the street. The Hollow looks down at the ice, then back at Rukia. No words, just that smile. The ice cracks. Rukia raises her sword with both hands, and for the first time, she is not sure if she is about to protect Ichigo or protect someone from him. Before the blade falls, Ichigo's human eye opens for half a second. He whispers, "Run." Rukia does, not away from him, toward the nurse. By the time she turns back, Ichigo is gone again. That night proves something worse than Soul Society's fear. Ichigo is still in there, but he is not always the one closest to the surface. Inside his inner world, Ichigo is changing too. At first, he fights White Ichigo every day and loses every day. He gets stabbed, drowned, thrown through buildings, cut down by his own sword over and over again. But he starts noticing patterns. White Ichigo always attacks when Ichigo is angry. He always laughs when Ichigo is afraid. And he always gets quiet when Ichigo thinks about his mother.
That silence becomes Ichigo's first weapon. One day, inside the Sideways City, Ichigo stops swinging.
White Ichigo rushes him.
Ichigo does not block. He just says, "You remember her too." The blade stops against his neck. White Ichigo's grin disappears. And for the first time, he does not deny it. That is when Ichigo understands the terrible truth. The Hollow is not some demon that crawled into him from the outside. It is made from his fear, his rage, his grief, his need to protect so badly that it becomes violence.
It is not the opposite of Ichigo. It is Ichigo with every gentle part burned away. That does not make it good. It makes it dangerous. Because you cannot kill a part of yourself without losing something you might need later. That is the first real turn. Ichigo's goal changes. He is no longer trying to get rid of the Hollow. He is trying to make sure that when the Hollow opens its eyes, it sees his enemies first.
Meanwhile, Aizen begins moving earlier than anyone expects. In the original story, he hides behind patience. In this timeline, Ichigo's Hollow forces his hand. Aizen abandons Soul Society with Gin and Tosen before the captains can recover from the chaos. He still takes the Hogyoku, but his speech changes. He does not talk about standing above the heavens. Not yet. He talks about evolution. He talks about the lie of boundaries.
Soul Reaper and Hollow, human and monster, king and horse. Then he turns his eyes toward the world of the living and says, almost softly, "The boy arrived ahead of schedule." From that moment, Aizen's entire plan bends around Ichigo. The Arrancar are not just soldiers anymore, they are experiments. Grimmjow is built to test Ichigo's violence. Ulquiorra is sent to test his despair. Yami is sent to test his restraint.
And Orihime is marked for capture, not only because she can reject events, but because Aizen believes she may be the only person alive who can reject the line between Ichigo and his Hollow. If she can separate them, Aizen can study the result. If she can fuse them, Aizen can create the perfect weapon. And that is why the next fight matters. Because Grimmjow is not sent to kill Ichigo. He is sent to find out what kind of monster Ichigo becomes when everyone he loves is watching. The first Arrancar attack comes at night. Grimmjow descends over Karakura with a grin sharp enough to cut glass, and the city lights flicker under his Reiatsu.
Rukia and Renji are already there, sent by Soul Society to monitor the Hollow threat. Hitsugiya arrives with Rangiku, Ikkaku, and Yumachika. Uru watches from a distance, refusing to admit he is worried. Chad stands below, fists clenched, knowing that if Ichigo appears, he may have to fight his best friend. Then Grimmjow laughs. Where is the king? The Hollow answers. It drops from the sky and crashes into Grimmjow so hard the street folds under them.
Everyone holds their breath. Because if the Hollow can beat Grimmjow, then maybe Ichigo's nightmare still has a purpose. Maybe the curse can protect Karakura. But if it loses here, in front of all of them, then Soul Society will stop calling Ichigo a risk. They will call him a liability. For the first 30 seconds, it looks like Ichigo's Hollow might actually win. He is faster than Grimmjow expects, wilder. He fights like a blade thrown by a storm.
He drags Zangetsu across Grimmjow's chest, kicks him through a building, and fires Getsuga after Getsuga until the night turns black and red. But then, the weakness shows. His body cannot keep up. Every burst of power tears his muscles. Every regeneration leaves him slower. The mask cracks wider with each hit. Grimmjow notices. And once Grimmjow notices weakness, he becomes cruel. He stops fighting Ichigo like an enemy. He starts fighting him like prey. A punch to the ribs, a knee to the face, a claw through the shoulder. Grimmjow grabs the mask and whispers, "You're not the king, you're the cage." Then he rips half of it off. Ichigo screams. Not the Hollow, Ichigo. For the first time, his friends hear both voices at once, layered together, fighting for the same pain. Orihime runs forward, ignoring every warning. Grimmjow raises his hand to fire a Sero at her. The Hollow moves before Ichigo does. It puts its body between Orihime and the blast. The Sero punches through Ichigo's chest and throws him across the street. Everyone goes silent, because that was not strategy. That was protection. The Hollow does not understand why it did it. Ichigo does. Inside the inner world, standing in black rain, he looks at White Ichigo and says, "You protected her." White Ichigo snarls, "I protected what's mine!" Ichigo steps closer. "No, you protected what I love." That line hits harder than any sword. White Ichigo attacks him, but this time, Ichigo blocks. Not because he is stronger, because he is no longer fighting a stranger. On the outside, Chad, Renji, and Rukia rush Grimmjow together. They do not beat him. They barely survive. But they buy time. Urahara arrives and forces Grimmjow to retreat. Ichigo is left in the street, bleeding, mask shattered, body shaking. Orihime kneels beside him and starts healing. Urahara tells her to stop. Everyone turns. He says if she restores Ichigo completely while the Hollow is dominant, she may stabilize the wrong soul. Orihime's hands tremble. She can save his body, but she might trap Ichigo forever. Ichigo opens one eye. Brown. Human. For 1 second, he says, "Do it." Then the eye turns yellow. The Hollow says, "Do it." And Orihime realizes Aizen is already winning. Because the cruelest battlefield is not Karakura. It is the choice he has forced into her hands. She heals only enough to keep Ichigo alive, not enough to restore him, not enough to stabilize him. It is the right choice, and it breaks her heart anyway. After Grimmjow, Ichigo disappears again, but this time, Rukia follows him. She finds him under the bridge where they first met, sitting in the dark, the mask gone, but bone fragments still clinging around one eye. His voice comes out rough. "You should kill me." Rukia says, "Probably." Ichigo almost laughs. Then she steps closer and punches him in the face. Not hard enough to hurt him, hard enough to remind him she is not afraid to reach him. If you want to die, say that, but do not dress it up like you're protecting us. For the first time since Sokyoku Hill, Ichigo cries. The Hollow laughs inside his mind, but quieter now. Rukia does not save him with a speech. She gives him a task. Train. Fight the Hollow. Learn its name. And if he loses again, she promises she will be the one to cut him down. That promise becomes Ichigo's anchor. Urahara builds a new training ground beneath the shop, deeper than the last, reinforced with stolen keto theory, Quincy binding patterns, and hollow bait seals that make the air taste like Hueco Mundo. But Urahara adds one secret failsafe and tells only Yoruichi. If Ichigo's Hollow reaches full control again, the training ground will collapse inward and seal him below the shop. Not for hours, forever. Rukia does not know. Orihime does not know. Ichigo definitely does not know. So while Ichigo thinks he is training to survive, Urahara is quietly preparing for the possibility that survival might be the worst outcome. Every night, after Ichigo collapses, Urahara checks the seals. Every night, Yoruichi asks the same question. Do you think he'll make it? And every night, Urahara gives the same answer. Ask me tomorrow. For 10 days, Ichigo trains with 3 enemies. Yoruichi teaches his body to move before instinct. Urahara teaches his mind to question every power that arrives too easily. And White Ichigo teaches him that survival is not the same as control. The inner battles are brutal. Ichigo loses his sword on day 1. On day 2, White Ichigo cuts off his arm. On day 3, Ichigo tries to use rage and gets swallowed by the black water. On day 4, he refuses to fight, and White Ichigo beats him unconscious for being naive.
On day 5, Ichigo asks him a question. If you wanted me dead, why haven't you killed me? White Ichigo does not answer. On day 6, Ichigo catches Zangetsu by the chain. On day 7, he lands 1 hit. On day 8, the Hollow smiles for real. Not mockery. Pride. On day 9, Ichigo understands the pact. The Hollow does not want a corpse. It wants a king. But if Ichigo is too weak to lead, it will take the crown.
On day 10, Ichigo stands in the sideways city, sword in hand, rain stopping around him. He says, "You can fight." White Ichigo narrows his eyes. Ichigo says, "But I choose who we fight for." White Ichigo grins. Then don't miss. The pact is not friendship. It is not peace. It is a blade held between 2 hands that do not trust each other yet. But when Ichigo opens his eyes in the real world, the mask forms differently.
Not across his whole face, only over one side. Half monster, half man. For the first time, Ichigo is not free, but he is present. Then Aizen takes Orihime. Not because she is weak, because she is the one person whose mercy can be turned into a weapon. And the timeline gets darker. In the original story, Orihime is bait. In this one, she is the lockpick to Ichigo's soul. Ulquiorra comes for her personally. No theatrics, no wasted motion. He appears in her room like the night itself has opened its eyes. He gives her the choice. Come to Hueco Mundo or watch Karakura become a feeding ground for Arrancar. Orihime asks if Ichigo is the reason. Ulquiorra says, he is the proof. You are the method. Before leaving, she goes to Ichigo. He is asleep in Urahara's basement, sealed by paper charms and exhaustion.
Orihime reaches through the barrier and touches his hand. His fingers tighten around hers. Both eyes open. One brown, one yellow. For one impossible second, both voices speak together. "Don't go." She smiles through tears. "Then come find me." It sounds like hope. But in this timeline, hope is exactly what Aizen is counting on. If Ichigo stays, Orihime is alone with Aizen. If Ichigo goes, he walks into the one world where his hollow feels most at home.
That is the trap. There is no safe direction. When Ichigo wakes up, she is gone. Soul Society forbids the rescue. Yamamoto's order is simple. Aizen wants Ichigo in Hueco Mundo, so Ichigo must not go. But Ichigo is done being moved around like a weapon. He goes anyway. Urahara watches him leave. His hand is on the trigger for the failsafe beneath the shop. For 1 second, he could end the risk right there.
Then, he lets Ichigo pass. Not because he is certain, because certainty is exactly what Aizen uses to control people. And this time, the team that follows him is different. Rukia goes because she promised to kill him if he falls. Renji goes because he owes Ichigo and refuses to let Rukia carry that burden alone. Chad goes because friendship was never a debate for him. Uryu goes because if Ichigo becomes a hollow completely, someone has to have the courage to end it.
And beneath them all, Yoruichi shadows the mission without permission from anyone, because even Urahara is not sure his plan will work. Hueco Mundo does not reject Ichigo. It welcomes him. The white desert hums under his feet. The moon seems to tilt toward him. Lesser hollows crawl out of the sand, not to attack, but to bow. Ichigo hates it. White Ichigo loves it. Las Noches rises in the distance like a dead kingdom waiting for its king to come home. The rescue mission splits almost immediately. And that matters because each fight is not just an obstacle. Each fight is a test of whether Ichigo's friends can survive in a story where Ichigo might not be the one who saves them. Aizen's goal is simple. Separate the people who anchor Ichigo. Break them, one at a time. Then let Ichigo reach Orihime with nothing left around him except guilt. The fights begin before they reach the gates.
Chad faces an Arankar made from dozens of broken hollow masks, a creature that grows new arms every time one is crushed. Chad loses the first exchange badly. He is thrown across the desert, his armor cracked, his arm numb. But Chad has always been strongest when standing back up. He remembers that his power was born from protection, not anger. And when the Arankar laughs at him for being human, Chad drives his fist into the sand and releases a shockwave that turns the desert into a crater.
He wins, but he cannot move afterward. One anchor is gone. Renji and Rukia fight twins who share one resurrection. Every wound one takes appears on the other, and every attack they make comes from two angles at once. Renji tries to overpower them and gets punished. Rukia tries to freeze them and gets trapped in a circle of mirrored blades.
They only win when Renji stops treating Rukia like someone he has to protect and starts fighting beside her like an equal. Zabimaru becomes the chain. Sode no Shirayuki becomes the execution. One twin is frozen in midair. The other is dragged into the same strike. And for one clean second, their teamwork looks like the Soul Society that should have been. 2 more anchors are left bleeding behind him.
Uryu fights alone, and that is where the first twist comes. He is confronted not by an Arrancar, but by a Quincy. Not alive, not dead. Something Aizen has built from stolen data, old Quincy remains, and Hogyoku-fed hollow matter. It calls Uryu by name. It knows his grandfather's techniques. It uses a bow made of white bone. And it tells him the truth Aizen discovered. Ichigo's hollow was never the only secret inside him.
Something else has been hiding deeper. Something Quincy. Uryu refuses to believe it. Then the creature fires an arrow shaped exactly like his grandfather's. The battle is vicious, personal, and ugly. Uryu wins by breaking his own bow and using the fragments as blades, but he leaves the fight shaken. Because if Aizen knows Ichigo has Quincy power, then Aizen knows more about Ichigo than Ichigo does. And Uryu understands the cruel shape of the rescue.
Chad cannot reach Ichigo. Rukia and Renji are trapped behind him. Uryu is wounded. The people who were supposed to pull Ichigo back are being removed from the board. One by one. Remember that. Because later, when Aizen thinks he has mapped every piece of Ichigo's soul, this hidden power is the crack in the glass.
She is in a white room with no doors, surrounded by floating mirrors of black glass. Each mirror shows one version of Ichigo. Human Ichigo, Soul Reaper Ichigo, Masked Ichigo, Full Hollow Ichigo, and one mirror that shows nothing at all. Ichigo stares at that one the longest, because empty does not mean harmless. It means something inside him has not chosen a shape yet. Aizen is waiting beside her.
He does not draw his sword. He does not need to. He only asks Ichigo one question. When the monster saved your friends, did you hate it for being a monster, or did you love it for saving them? Ichigo attacks. Aizen stops Zangetsu with one finger. That is the difference between them. Ichigo has survived. Aizen has prepared. And preparation beats talent when talent is bleeding. This is the moment Aizen reveals the cruelest part of the plan. He never needed to control Ichigo every second. He only needed to choose the moment when Ichigo would be most afraid of himself. Aizen explains the experiment in the calmest voice imaginable. Ichigo's takeover at Sokyoku Hill created an unstable hybrid. Powerful, but divided. Dangerous, but incomplete. Orihime's power can reject that division. If she rejects the hollow, Ichigo becomes human enough to break. If she rejects the human, the hollow becomes pure enough to command.
If she rejects the boundary itself, then Ichigo becomes what Aizen intends to become, a being beyond category. Then Aizen turns to Orihime, not with a threat, with a choice. Heal Ichigo completely, and maybe stabilize the hollow forever. Refuse, and watch Ulquiorra carve him apart, piece by piece. That is why Ichigo loses control before the fight even starts. Aizen does not attack his body first. He attacks the part of Ichigo that cannot stand watching someone else suffer for him.
Ichigo tries to reach Orihime. Ulquiorra steps between them, and the real nightmare begins. This Ulquiorra is not here to test Ichigo's strength. He is here to empty him. The fight moves from the white room to the roof of Las Noches, under the black sky. Ichigo uses the half mask. His speed doubles. His Getsuga tears across the dome. For a moment, he pushes Ulquiorra back. And that is exactly why Ulquiorra lets him.
He wants Orihime to see hope first, because hope makes the fall louder. Then Ulquiorra releases. The pressure drops like the world has lost its air. Ichigo's mask cracks just from standing near him. Ulquiorra is faster, colder, cleaner. Every movement is a sentence. Every strike says the same thing. You are not enough. Ichigo fights harder. He loses harder. Ulquiorra cuts through his shoulder. Ichigo gets up. Ulquiorra breaks his ribs. Ichigo gets up. Ulquiorra fires a Cerro Ascaris that blows half the roof apart and sends Ichigo into the tower wall so deep the stone closes around him. Ichigo still gets up. For the first time, Ulquiorra looks almost curious. Why rise? Ichigo spits blood and says, "Because she's watching." White Ichigo laughs inside him. "Because we hate losing." For once, both answers are true. Ichigo charges. Ulquiorra opens his second release, and everything stops feeling like a fight. It becomes an execution. The wings, the horns, the black tears, the lance forming above his hand like judgment from an empty god. Ichigo cannot move. Not because he is afraid, because his soul recognizes the gap. Ulquiorra throws Lanza del Relampago. Ichigo blocks with everything. It is not enough. The explosion tears open Las Noches and throws Ichigo into the desert below.
He lies in the sand with a hole through his chest, mask shattered, Zangetsu broken beside him. Orihime screams. White Ichigo reaches for the body. This is where the full hollow would normally be born. This is the moment everyone expects. Horns, roar, unstoppable rage. But the darkest version of the story does not give Ichigo that release. It turns the transformation into a trap. But in this timeline, Aizen is ready.
A black seal appears around the hole in Ichigo's chest. Aizen's seal. He had placed it in the mirrors, in the air, in every reflection of Ichigo's soul. The moment the hollow tries to take over, the seal clamps down. White Ichigo screams inside the inner world as chains rip out of the black water and drag him under. Ichigo sees it happen. He sees the thing that stole his body.
The thing that hurt his friends. The thing he feared more than death. And he realizes Aizen is not sealing a monster. He is enslaving a part of Ichigo's soul. Ichigo grabs the chain. White Ichigo stares at him in disbelief. What are you doing? Ichigo says, nobody gets to use us. Outside,
Ichigo's body does not transform. It crawls, bleeding, broken, half dead, dragging the chain Aizen placed inside him like it is a physical thing.
Ulquiorra watches, expressionless. Orihime cannot heal him because the seal rejects her power. Uryu arrives and understands before anyone else. There is only one way to break a hollow binding seal from the outside: a Quincy arrow. But if he fires it into Ichigo now, it could destroy the hollow and take Ichigo with it. Ichigo looks at him. No speech. No begging. Just trust. Uryu fires. The arrow hits the hole in Ichigo's chest.
The world turns white. Inside the inner world, the chain shatters. White Ichigo is free. Ichigo collapses. And then both of them stand up together. The transformation that follows is not the full hollow form. It is uglier, less complete, more painful. One horn grows from the mask, cracked at the tip. One arm becomes armored in white bone. The other stays human, shaking around Zangetsu's broken hilt. His chest wound does not close. It burns black.
He is not stronger than Ulquiorra. Not really. But now he is unpredictable in a way Ulquiorra cannot calculate. Ichigo blocks with human will. White Ichigo counters with hollow instinct. Ichigo retreats. White Ichigo lunges. Ichigo protects Orihime. White Ichigo punishes the opening. For the first time, Ulquiorra is fighting two kings in one body, and he starts losing ground. The final exchange is brutal. Ulquiorra forms a second lance.
Ichigo cannot dodge. White Ichigo wants to charge. Ichigo refuses. They argue for half a heartbeat. That should be enough to die. But Orihime steps forward and rejects the space between Ichigo's broken blade and the missing half of Zangetsu. For 1 second, the sword becomes whole. Ichigo and White Ichigo swing together. The black Getsuga does not overpower Ulquiorra's lance. It bends it. Just enough. The lance misses Ichigo's heart by an inch and detonates behind him.
Ichigo's blade cuts across Ulquiorra's chest. Ulquiorra falls to one knee. He is not dead yet. Aizen makes sure of that. From far away, the Hogyoku pulses. Ulquiorra's body begins to crumble, not from Ichigo's attack, but because Aizen is taking back the data he came for. Ulquiorra looks at Orihime. For the first time, there is something in his eyes that might be fear. Not fear of dying. Fear that his emptiness was never proof of anything. He reaches toward her. This time, Ichigo does not stop him. Orihime reaches back. Ulquiorra turns to ash before their hands touch, and Ichigo, still bleeding, understands what Aizen just did. He did not lose an espada. He completed an experiment. By the time Ichigo returns to the fake Karakura town, the war has already begun. And that is the punishment for surviving Las Noches. He saved Orihime, but he arrived late to everyone else.
The captains are fighting Espada across a city that is not a city, under a sky that feels too clean for the amount of blood being spilled. Stark battles Shinsui, but in this timeline, Stark is more desperate. He can feel Aizen discarding pieces on the board. He knows loyalty will not save him. Baragan fights Soifan and Hachi, but he is angrier because Ichigo's existence insults him. A half-hollow child has done what the king of Hueco Mundo never could, become the center of Aizen's attention.
Horrible faces Hitsugaya, Lisa, and Hiyori, but her fight changes when she sees Ichigo arrive. She does not see a monster. She sees a victim wearing a crown made of teeth. The battle should turn when Ichigo enters. It does not. In another timeline, the hero's arrival flips the war. Here, the arrival is exactly what Aizen has been waiting for. That is what makes Aizen terrifying.
Ichigo is stronger than before, smarter, more stable. His half-hollow form can stand against captain-level opponents. His Getsuga can tear through a Spada Hiero. His speed forces even senior captains to track him carefully. But Aizen is not impressed. He lets Ichigo cut him once. Just once. The blade touches his shoulder. A line of blood appears. Everyone freezes. For one shining second, it feels possible. Then Aizen smiles. There it is.
The blood is not blood. It is ink. The cut spreads into a symbol across Ichigo's blade, then his arm, then his mask. Kyoka Suigetsu was not only in Aizen's sword, it was in the reflection of Ichigo's own hollow Reiatsu from the moment he saw Aizen in Las Noches. Ichigo's half-mask locks in place. His body turns toward his friends. Rukia understands first. She raises her sword with tears in her eyes.
Aizen gives the command. Kill them. Ichigo moves. The battlefield erupts. Byakuya intercepts the first strike. His injured arm nearly gives out from the impact. Renji grabs Ichigo's leg with Zabimaru. Chad blocks the follow-up and is driven into the ground. Uryu fires arrow after arrow, aiming not to kill, but to interrupt the flow of Reiatsu around the mask. None of it is enough. Aizen has turned Ichigo into the exact thing Soul Society feared.
A weapon pointed at the people who loved him. And the cruelest part is that every person on that battlefield knows Ichigo would rather die than make them raise their swords against him. This is Rukia's nightmare from the hospital made real. Only now, there is no nurse to protect. There is an entire battlefield. Inside the inner world, Ichigo and White Ichigo are both trapped behind glass. That is the true horror. For once, they are on the same side, and neither of them can move. White Ichigo slams his fists into the glass, screaming. Ichigo does the same. Outside, Ichigo's body raises Zangetsu over Rukia. She does not dodge. She just says his name. Ichigo. The sword falls and stops. Not because Ichigo breaks free, because Byakuya catches the blade with his bare hand. Blood runs down his wrist.
He looks at the mask, at the thing that nearly killed him on Sokyoku Hill, and says the words nobody expected from him. I do not trust the Hollow. Then his eyes sharpen. But I trust the man fighting it. Byakuya releases Senbon Kageyoshi at point-blank range. The blades do not attack Ichigo's body.
They attack the ink crawling across his Reiatsu. Thousands of petals scrape against Aizen's control like razors against poison.
Uryu sees the opening and fires one perfect arrow into the crack of the mask. Rukia follows with a freezing strike that locks Ichigo's body in place. And inside the inner world, the glass fractures. White Ichigo grins at Ichigo. Now, Ichigo grips Zangetsu. Now, they break through together. Ichigo collapses in the real world, freed from Aizen's command. But the victory lasts only seconds. Aizen has already evolved. The Hogyoku blooms in his chest like a star that learned arrogance.
He cuts through captains as if they are memories. Shinji's reversal fails. Hitsugaya's ice breaks. Yoruichi shatters her armor against him. Isshin arrives and strikes Aizen so hard the city shakes, but even he cannot keep him down. Urahara's seals land. Not ordinary seals. The same kind of killing cage he built beneath the shop. The failsafe he never wanted Ichigo to see. For one breath, Aizen is trapped. Then the Hogyoku answers him.
The seals crumble. Aizen looks at Urahara with something like pity. You built doors. I became the key. He turns to Ichigo. And you were the first lock. That is when Isshin tells Ichigo the truth. Not all of it. There is no time for all of it. But enough. His mother was Quincy. His power is not a straight line. It is a knot. Human, Soul Reaper, Hollow, Quincy.
Every force that should reject the others is inside him, and Aizen's mistake was thinking that made Ichigo easier to control. It makes him impossible to simplify. Isshin pulls Ichigo into the Dangai, but this training is not the same as the one we know. Ichigo is not trying to learn one final technique from Zangetsu. He is trying to decide who gets to come back. If he returns too human, Aizen kills him.
If he returns too hollow, his friends will have to. There is no clean victory waiting in the Dangai. Only a version of Ichigo dangerous enough to win and human enough to stop. In the slowed time of the Dangai, Ichigo enters his inner world and finds it changed. The sideways city is gone. The black rain is gone. There is only a white desert under a black sky, and in the center of it stands white Ichigo with Zangetsu over his shoulder.
Behind him is the shadow of the old man who has been quiet this entire timeline. The false Zangetsu. The hidden Quincy power. The part that protected Ichigo by restraining him. Ichigo looks at both of them and finally understands why he has felt divided his whole life. One power wanted him to survive by control. One power wanted him to survive by instinct. And Ichigo kept mistaking both for enemies because neither of them knew how to love him gently. White Ichigo attacks. The old man binds Ichigo's feet. This is not training. It is judgment. If Ichigo cannot accept all of himself, he will return as another weapon. If he accepts too much, he may never return human. For what feels like months, he loses. White Ichigo cuts him down when he hesitates. The old man chains him when he reaches for too much power. Every defeat shows him another memory. His mother smiling in the rain. His sisters waiting at home. Rukia reaching for him under the bridge. Orihime choosing not to heal him because saving him meant trusting him to suffer. Uryu firing the arrow that could have killed him because Ichigo asked. Byakuya catching his blade because faith sometimes looks like bleeding for someone you fear. Ichigo stands up after each memory. Weaker at first, then steadier. Finally, White Ichigo drives Zangetsu through his chest and says, "If you are king, stop begging your power to be kind." The old man raises his hand to seal the hollow away forever. Ichigo stops him. Then Ichigo does the one thing he has never done. He kneels. Not in surrender, in acceptance. He places one hand on White Ichigo's blade and one hand on the old man's chain. "I don't need either of you to be kind." He looks up. "I need you to be mine." The desert cracks. The sky splits open. White Ichigo laughs like thunder. The old man closes his eyes. And for the first time, Zangetsu is not one voice lying or another voice screaming. It is both. When Ichigo returns to the battlefield, his form is not clean. It is not angelic. It is not the calm, perfect strength of a chosen hero. It is frightening. One horn, broken and black at the tip. One eye brown. One eye gold.
A cloak of dark reiatsu that moves like torn wings. White armor along one arm. Black chain wrapped around the other. Zangetsu is longer, thinner, and silent. Everyone feels it. Not just power. Cost. This form is temporary. Every second burns away the boundary keeping Ichigo human. If the fight lasts too long, the Hollow wins by default. So the final battle is not a question of whether Ichigo can hit harder than Aizen.
That would be too easy. The real question is whether Ichigo can end the fight before his own power finishes what Aizen started. Aizen understands immediately and smiles. At last. Their final battle does not begin with speeches. It begins with the sky splitting in half. Ichigo and Aizen clash above Fate Karakura, and the shockwave crushes buildings that are not even real. Aizen's blade bends space with every swing. Ichigo's Getsuga drags darkness behind it like the night is being torn open.
At first, Ichigo pushes him back.
Aizen's smile fades.
Ichigo cuts through one evolution, then another. He moves too fast for Kyoka Suigetsu to fully catch him, because half of his perception is human and half is hollow instinct, and neither sees the same illusion the same way. For the first time in his life, Aizen cannot make one lie fit the entire soul. Ichigo lands a blow across Aizen's chest. Then another.
then a third that sends Aizen crashing through the city below. For a moment, it feels like the hero has arrived. Then Ichigo coughs blood into his mask. The horn grows longer. His human eye flickers gold. Aizen sees it. He changes tactics instantly. He stops trying to overpower Ichigo. He starts trying to outlast him. That is why Aizen is so dangerous. He does not need pride to look like pride. He can turn patience into cruelty. He lets Ichigo burn. He makes him chase. He moves the fight away from Urahara's prepared seals. He cuts at Ichigo's human side, forcing the Hollow to respond. He whispers that Orihime feared him, that Uryu prepared to kill him, that Soul Society was right, that every friend on the battlefield is only waiting to see which version of Ichigo survives. Each word is a blade. And some of them hit. Ichigo's attacks get wilder. White Ichigo's laughter gets louder. The form slips. Rukia sees it from below. So does Orihime. So does Uryu. They realize the same thing at the same time. Ichigo cannot win this fight alone. Not because he lacks power, because power is the trap. And this is where the question from the beginning finally changes. It is no longer, who is brave enough to stop Ichigo? It becomes, who is brave enough to trust him one more time while he looks like the thing they feared. Aizen wants him to prove that evolution means domination. Ichigo has to prove it means connection. So the final opening is built by everyone Aizen dismissed. Every person who was almost cut down by Ichigo becomes part of the strike that saves him from himself. This is the payoff to every choice that kept him alive. Orihime's hands did not trap him. Uryu's arrow did not kill him. Rukia's sword did not give up on him. And now, all three choices become one attack. Rukia freezes the air around Aizen for less than a second. Renji's Zabimaru catches one wing-like extension of the Hogyoku evolution and tears it off balance. Chad strikes the ground beneath Aizen and sends the shock through his body. Not to hurt him, but to interrupt his step. Uryu fires an arrow through the space between Kyoka Suigetsu's illusions, guided by the one thing Aizen never understood. Uryu knows what it feels like to aim at Ichigo and choose trust anyway. Orihime rejects the damage to Ichigo's human eye for one heartbeat. One heartbeat is enough. Ichigo appears in front of Aizen. Aizen raises his sword. Ichigo does not swing. He grabs Aizen by the face with the hollow arm. For the first time, Aizen looks startled. White Ichigo speaks through the mask. You wanted the monster. Ichigo's human voice finishes. Then look at what it protects. The final Getsuga is not a slash. It is a silence. If this misses, Ichigo does not get another swing. There will be no second form. No last-minute mask. No hidden rescue. Just Aizen standing over the thing Ichigo became. All the sound in the world disappears as Black Reiatsu folds inward around Ichigo's blade. The hollow side devours the excess power. The Quincy side binds the shape. The Soul Reaper side releases it. The human side chooses the target. Not Aizen's body. not his soul. His certainty. The strike passes through Aizen and hits the Hogyoku's bond to him. For one impossible second, Aizen sees himself the way everyone else does. Not a god. Not a king. A man terrified that being ordinary would mean being unseen. The Hogyoku rejects him. Urahara's seal activates. Chains of light wrap around Aizen from every direction. He screams, not because he is in pain, but because the universe has refused to agree with him. Ichigo falls from the sky. Orihime catches him before he hits the ground. The mask is gone. The horn is gone. For 1 second, everyone thinks he came back. Then Ichigo opens his eyes. One brown, one gold. Rukia lowers her sword first. Uryu lowers his bow second. Neither of them says Ichigo is safe. They only decide he is still Ichigo. The war ends. But the darkest timeline does not end cleanly. That is what makes it darker than a simple bad ending. The heroes win. And still, nobody gets to pretend everything is fixed.
Aizen is sealed. The Espada are broken. Karakura is saved. Soul Society survives. But Ichigo does not return to the life he had before. He cannot. The final form burned away the walls inside him. The Hollow is no longer taking over, but it is no longer hidden either. It is awake behind every breath. It watches through one eye. It smiles when enemies bleed. It growls when friends get too close to danger. Soul Society debates execution again. This time, Byakuya speaks against it. So does Rukia. So does Kenpachi, though his argument is mostly that killing Ichigo now would be boring and stupid. Yamamoto does not trust him. Urahara does not pretend he should. So they make a compromise that feels like a punishment. Ichigo Kurosaki may live in the world of the living, but he can never again be left unmonitored. Rukia is assigned as his watcher. Uryu quietly prepares arrows he hopes he never has to use. Orihime keeps healing him in small ways, never too much at once. Chad visits without asking questions. And Ichigo returns to school with a smile that almost works. But some nights, when the city is quiet, he climbs to the roof and looks at the moon. The Hollow looks with him. Not as a prisoner. Not as a master. As a warning. One night, Rukia finds him there. She asks if he is still Ichigo. He thinks about lying. Then he says, most of the time. Rukia sits beside him. That is enough. Because this Ichigo did not defeat his darkness by destroying it. He survived by carrying it. That is the part Soul Society can never fully accept. They wanted a clean answer. Hero or hollow. Saved or condemned. But Ichigo's answer is messier than that. He is alive. He is dangerous. And he is still choosing. And maybe that is why this is Bleach's darkest timeline. Not because the hero became a monster, but because the monster helped save the world. And afterward, everyone had to live with the fact that it was part of the hero all along. But even that ending leaves one question open. If the Hollow is awake now, who else noticed? The answer is sitting in a chair beneath Soul Society. Deep beneath the 1st Division barracks, Aizen sits sealed in darkness. He has lost. His body is bound. His sword is taken. The Hogyoku is silent. But he is smiling. Because during the final clash, when Ichigo struck the certainty from his soul, something else happened. For 1 second, Aizen saw beyond the boundary of the worlds.
Beyond Soul Society. Beyond Hueco Mundo. Beyond the human world. He saw the palace above. He saw the thing holding everything together. And he understood why Ichigo's existence frightened the old order so badly. Ichigo was never just a weapon. He was a question. What happens when every power that should be separate chooses one human body as its battlefield? Soul Society thinks the answer is danger.
Aizen thought the answer was godhood. Ichigo proved both of them wrong. The answer is choice. That is the nightmare Aizen leaves behind. Not a boy who escaped his hollow. A boy who can open the door to it and still come back, speaking in his own voice. And somewhere inside Ichigo Kurosaki, in a white desert under a black sky, the Hollow sits on a broken throne and laughs. Not because it won, not because Ichigo lost, but because the next time the world tries to decide what Ichigo is, it knows Ichigo will decide first.